unit where another sergeant was had been killed. He had the position that I wanted to take. So the 6 months tank training was very specific to be driving school. Driving, you would start with a truck, then on a tank shell without the heavy gun in it. Then you train in night driving, and I found out that it's a good thing to park under a fruit tree and report in tank number so-and-so in position. Said, okay guys, save me some of the cherries. And when I came back, they said, Kraft, the farmers are complaining. You're killing all their cherry trees. So it was my part of my study for the tank corps. You had in every room, there were an average of between 12 and 16 Unteroffiziere. And the oldest one was a non-commissioned officer, not an officer candidate. He would be a non-commissioned officer for the rest of his life. And therefore they were not thinking too much of us lieutenants that had the 2 stripes for officer candidate. And he would say, what did you learn today when I told you about East Germany and so on? And we would say that you told us to put commanding, to put units out of business first that were the most threat to a tank. And today the German army advanced 10 miles and then moved back 15 miles in order to be in a better position for the war next day. You have any questions? I said, yes, I got a question. When going back 5 miles was so good, gave us 10 miles, why didn't we go back 20 miles? He didn't ask me any more questions. But next day, when we were had infantry training out in a muddy field, he made sure that I was crawling through the muddy piles of sand and stuff. And he reported me for the groups. Well, the military police came, a police car. Who is Private Kraft? You go with us. What, you, an officer candidate? You did all this? You come with us. He rang the bell by headquarters building, and the captain, legal officer comes out, and he said, the army has reasons for you to hold you as a prisoner for inciting troops to riot. Troops to riot? I only made a joke about what the instructor told us to do. So I knew that was a bad charge against me. Sure enough, in the morning, he called out everybody to unit so-and-so, except Paul Kraft. We have to bring him to the legal office. And they take me to the legal office, and there's all officers in there. And they said, you did these things, said this about the war? I said, oh, it doesn't look good for me. Do you have to say anything? I said, yes, sir. That sergeant that took me prisoner, he called me Kraft, you Bolshevist. And that is a deep insult, because I was in the Hitler Youth since I was 9 years old, and I got good connections with the Gestapo and I got to report this sergeant immediately. Let me have a phone. Oh, just a minute, he said. Right outside. We call you in. He called me in. He said, the Army will drop all charges against you if you don't contact the Gestapo. I said, well, I think you think about that. So they said, you become Richtungsoffizier in the tank number so-and-so, where the former man in charge was riding in that tank. And a short time later, he told us that the Russians broke through near Graudenz, German city in the eastern part of Germany. And we rode with a tank full of ammunition and gas towards Graudenz, and we were assigned a room in a regular section where working people were living. And because I lived always on the second floor, I said to my crew, I'll be up on the second floor and wake me up at 6 o'clock. And come up on the second floor, and there's the loader. And there's a golden wristwatch laying on the desk, and the loader goes, tries it on. He said, yeah, it fits. I said, you can't steal that lady's watch. She'll be coming back. He said, you could talk. You should talk. You just took her umbrella. I said, yeah, but I need the umbrella. Every time it snows, I get full of snow. Now I got an umbrella to put in a turret. I was the funniest, the only tank on the German front with an umbrella in the turret. And the infantry around me, they said, we're going to ride, we're going to be on top of you. I said, no, I get a lot of infantry fire. You stay down. And that day, our regular lieutenant was away, and we had a lieutenant, a young guy, no, an older guy, from Vienna. He said, I'm your boss now. I said, okay, boss, I want you to do something for me. When I have a tank grenade in, and I said, tank, you get out of the recoil section right away because there's a big load behind it. He said, you will not fire the gun until I give you permission. I said, there's Russian tanks, 2 tanks right ahead of us. If we don't shoot at them, they're gonna kill us. While I was arguing with him, a tank shell came through the tank, cut the guy with the golden wristwatch, took his top off, and I tried to get up because I felt that lieutenant from Vienna climbing around on my shoulders, trying to get out. He had trouble getting through the narrow exit for the commander. I had to get behind it, and I saw that fire was developing in the tank. And you have incendiary ammunition that doesn't need much to explode. We were a full 60 grenades in the hold. And so I tried to get out, and I had to push that lieutenant ahead of me. And as soon as I got out and fell down, infantryman from the next tank rolled me in the snow, in the ice, and said, you're burning. And rolled me in the snow. It was February. And the tank next to him swung around, showed the Russian the rear side, which he shouldn't do, pulled me up and drove out. So that's how I got in and out of Graudenz. Driving into Graudenz had another surprise. I was in a large, fast, Schnellwagen, fast train part. When I saw all of a sudden the train slowed down, that the truck went next to a highway into Danzig, and here I see somebody hanging on the light pole. I see it's a Hitler Youth boy, a young folk, maybe 14 years old, with a sign around the neck, I am a traitor. I am a coward. I couldn't talk much. My hands were all bandaged up and so on. We stopped, and I tried to talk to a doctor. And he didn't have time for me. And he loaded me in an ambulance next door and took off to eventually Berlin. It was an Army Reserve hospital. And again, we tried, we wanted some food. We said, no, we don't have any more. Next day I got up and I said, I'm going to find out where there is some food. Went on the next floor, saw the door open to an officer's room, and they said, give me something to eat, I'm hungry. So it's the whole room down below. We lost several guys that passed away last night. They were hungry. I said, you the hell get out of here. You're not an officer. And I said, I'm going to shoot you, son of bitches. I got a pistol in my back. I came down to my room, and the guys that were friends to me before, they wouldn't talk to me anymore. They wouldn't look at me. I thought I must have done something really bad. Again, the field police came next day, said, Kraft, you again? We're going to take you to headquarters. And I talked my way out of that one. By that time, my next orders came in that I do not go back to the Russian front, where my first orders showed going back to Russia. I said, go to Normandy. The Americans just broke through and they need tank crews. Get in this truck and they'll take you to Normandy. Well, halfway there, they said, no, we lost Normandy. The Americans took it all, and you go back to Russia by way of Berlin. You catch a train to Berlin. From Berlin, you go to Salzburg. So I got in my train to Berlin, and Berlin was under siege. The Russians had big tanks in the center of the city already, and I knew how to get to a freight yard by going past the zoo. They were killing the lions. They said, we need meat, and we don't have any more meat for the lions or for the buffaloes. You're going to get this. And I ended up in a train to Prague. And the Americans were coming from Salzburg and along the Inn River. And I looked for leftovers of the tank units and found a bunch, and said, what are we going to do now? And he said, well, the Americans will be here any minute. Their tanks are just driving through the next little village. In the meantime, I had met four high-ranking SS officers. And they said, well, you go with us. I said, okay. Let me just listen to what's going on outside. And those four officers took off their iron crosses and so on. And the American tanks just came rolling up. And I wasn't first sure what this was. Green tanks with a white star on it. I said, did they go crazy? The Russians have a red tank, a red star with a green tank. So I said, I got to go inside and ask those SS officers what's going on. And they had just said, you are non-commissioned officers. Here's a key for the pantry. There were 2 German soldiers sentenced to death by us because they were trying to escape. They were not firing at the Americans when they're coming in, so you have been sentenced to death in the meantime. I said, okay, let me just check on the Americans again. Went outside, came back in. I said, they're going to be here any minute. They said, just a minute. They left. They never came back. I went outside as the tanks had driven by and decided to go in a schoolhouse, little schoolhouse. And peeked through the keyhole, saw what was going on the street. A big, tall American sergeant was yelling at a little old farm lady, hands up, hands up. And she didn't understand. She said, what? I told the guy, leave her alone. She's not a soldier. And I walked outside. It was slowly getting evening, and I see jeeps driving by with GIs in it. And I said to myself, they gotta have some food. So I approached one GI. I said, I got a nice pistol for you if you let me get up to my room, get something. Oh, sure. He said, go ahead, follow me. And then I showed him a pistol. He threw his rifle down and he said, oh, can I really have this? I said, yeah, sure, if you let me go. Yeah, you can go. And I went back downstairs, and that's when I spent the night and on a haystack again. And in the morning, 3 girls come running through a deserted road in the woods, and they see me and they said, a German man, where you come from? He said, well, the girl said, our mother is a baker here and a cook. You see that red cross on that roof? We have so many British officers here, and my mother cooks for them. I said, she'll cook for one more man now. That's me.